What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and in this video I want to talk about Bitcoin specifically on the monthly time frame and just using the RSI. The RSI, I mean, really, we talk about the RSI, we use the MACD, we use the stochastics, and various other indicators too, but predominantly those three. For the majority of this channel's existence, we just use the RSI. And I say I would use other indicators, and I still do. I use more indicators than what I normally put on the charts. The reason why I don't show all the indicators and the reason why for a long time I only showed the RSI is because I don't like to complicate things. I try to make things as simple as possible. And that's effectively what I'm doing in this, I hope I'm doing in this video, is trying to make things as simple as possible, right? There's a bunch of indicators. We could talk for hours about all these different indicators that all suggest we're going up or going down or whatever. But the RSI, for me at least, has been one of the most reliable indicators. The stochastics and the MACD are as well, and price action is the ultimate arbiter of truth. But I want to talk about this specific relationship that Bitcoin's price has with the monthly RSI. So the monthly price action with the RSI, okay, throughout its history. Now, there's been various moments throughout Bitcoin's history where we have had bear markets, bear cycles, right? And there's going theories. There's a few different theories, but the predominant prevailing thought is that this was our first bear market, this was our second, this was our third, and this was our fourth. There's a lot of people who are assuming we're in the beginning of our fifth, and that might be true. But I want to show you guys the relationship that our monthly RSI has had with every single one of these bear markets, okay? Because we're at a very critical moment right now. We're right here at the 50 level. We're right there, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, Bitcoin, you can tell, it's a very bullish chart because predominantly most of its life has been above the 50. Predominantly, you're getting overbought. You've never been oversold. Doesn't mean that you won't be oversold at some point. It's probably going to happen at some point. And we'll still be bullish on Bitcoin even then. But this level here, the 50, again, the thought being that you do not spend too much time at all below this. So my thought is, well, obviously, each of these moments has to correlate with a bear market, right? And they do. Right here, right here, right here, and right here. They all do. Below the 50. That doesn't mean if we're below the 50 that we're in a bear market necessarily. We've gotten below the 50 here and we weren't in a bear market. That was pretty extreme times. We were still in the midst of our bull market. Still macro highs, higher highs and higher lows. So we can get below the 50. And even here, this cycle, even here, we got below the 50 after being above it. And we were still in a bull market, right? We still pushed on higher. So getting below the 50 in itself does not represent that we're in a bear market. And that's not what I'm trying to say here. What I'm trying to say, the observation just at a simplistic point of view, is that every bear market we've had has been here below the 50. So that's the first step. And we can accept that that is a fact. That's 100% true. The second step, I think, would be to address how long did we progress lower? How long were we below the 50 before we found our low of the bear market, right? Well, here we were below the 50. It was on this month, and that just happened to be the month that we found the low of the bear market. It happened to be right there as soon as we got below the 50. Because here you can see you're actually above the 50 right here on this month. You're right there. On the next month in October, this is the month that we actually got below the 50. Your low on the RSI came the month after that, but your low on the price was here this month, right? You had a lower monthly close the next month, but you had a higher low in the price. So your low was there. You were under the 50 for 1 month, and that was your bear market low. That's the point that we're trying to make. The next bear market, when you got below the 50, would have been right here. Not here, because at this point, you're actually right here on the RSI, just above the 50, so it would have been this month here. How many months afterwards did we have until the bear market resolved itself? We had 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 months. This was the end of the bear market. Not this. This was the beginning of the bull market. This is the end of the bear market, though. So it took 4 months. A little bit over a quarter of a year. We're going to do that there. 4 months. 4 months later. Okay. After getting below the 50. We go to the next bear market. And I want to be very clear, too, in case it's lost in the translation. This is not me saying we're in a bear market. This is me just trying to make some observations and building out a case for if we are in a bear market, what might we expect to see? As far as timing goes, as far as more dropping goes, what might we expect? I believe we're still in the bull market. I believe we have more to go. We're very close to the 50, though. A lot of people are worried about the bear market. I want to play the devil's advocate to myself and say that, okay, what if we do go lower? What might that look like, right? And I don't think, again, very clearly, I don't think we go lower. I don't think 126K was the top. I think it's the momentary high. It's the all-time high right now, but I don't think it was the top. And I do think we have more upside to interact with before we go lower. But we'll see. You know, time will tell. If you disagree with that, that's okay. Let's agree to disagree. Here, right here, it says 49.9. Look at this right here, 49.9. So technically, this month you were below the 50. Technically. And this is technical analysis. So let's be technical. Technically, that's when you crossed below the 50 was this month. You did go lower, but you only for 1, 2, 3 months. No, I'm sorry. 2 months. 2 months later, you found your low. We went below the 50 here, and it was on that very month that we found our low. So we don't got to worry about that there, and that wasn't a bear market, so it doesn't apply. The next cycle. Do you guys see where I'm going with it? Maybe at first you were kind of like, okay, let's see where this is going. Now I think you're probably all aware of where this is, right? This was not below the 50, but the next month was right here. We were just below the 50 there. You can see the reading up here. It says 48, 48.7. Okay. How many more months did we have of a bear market after this? Now this one was a little bit longer than any of the other examples that we've had, but still, really roughly, we had about 2 months before we found a very significant low. And then we consolidated for a long time. We saw a slightly lower low 7 months there later. Okay, so in every bear market Bitcoin has ever had, we've spent 1 month below the 50, 4 months below the 50, 2 months below the 50, and 7 months below the 50 before finding our low. That's not how much time the RSI spent below the 50 overall. That's just how much time it spent below the 50 before we found our low in the price. And there were a lot of, by the way, guys, there were a lot of indicators last cycle that suggested that the low, the bear market low was here. A lot of people thought that was the end of the bear market, right? And then we did go a little bit lower. So, and that is 2 months. That's actually more appropriate with the range we've been given, where 7 months is kind of a little bit of an outlier. But let's run with that, okay? We are clearly not below the 50 this month. And I doubt between now and the next 3 hours and 23 minutes of this month that we're going to get below the 50. If you're bearish, you might assume that December's a red month. So if December's a red month, that would be our starting point, because likely then we would close below the 50 in December, which would then imply, if you're bearish, at a bare minimum, that this month could be, December could be the end of your bear market. Or maybe it's 4 months later, or 2 months, or 7 months, or somewhere in between. So let's give a range now. Let's do 2 months. 2 months here. And we'll put it right here. I'm going to move this green line away. We know where our starting point is, so I'm just going to delete that and leave us with the range. 2 months to 7 months. And again, I don't think 7 months is appropriate, but who am I to say? Maybe it should be more time. If Bitcoin is in a bear market, and I don't think it is, right? We'll go over some other reasons real quick why I think that, but first, if it is in a bear market, our bear market should end. It should be over. Not in October, not in Q4, not in late Q3, like everybody's expecting it to be, or late Q4 even. It would likely be over either in February or July, or most likely somewhere in between. I would think February, March, April, if we're in a bear market. I really don't think that we're in a bear market, right? Beyond that, and part of the reason why I don't think we're in a bear market is this, the RSI here. A lot of people are saying we have bearish divergence. That's the end of the cycle. We had bearish divergence last cycle. We had a double top the cycle before. We had bearish divergence the cycle before. That always marks the end of the cycle. Well, it's fair. That's fair, right? Bearish divergence here. But this divergence was really between these points. If you look at this, we had divergence here between these points, and we had that move down. We had that move down, and then we built more. We actually interacted with this high. Just barely, we barely just missed it, but that is enough to reset the divergence. That's enough. That exacted the divergence. We already saw that divergence come to fruition. That's what this drop was. So this divergence here. We've diverged between these points and here, and guess what? We've already seen that move play out. If you're under the impression that this bearish divergence means that we're in a bear market, well, what does this mean then? Why do we have lower lows in the price, or in the indicator, yet higher lows in the price? What does that mean? That is hidden bullish divergence. If you're relying on this to be your secret sauce to the bear market, why are we ignoring the very real fact that we have hidden bullish divergence too, right? And again, I don't think we're going to get below the 50. I don't think we're going to get below the 50 in December. I don't think we're going to get below the 50 until sometime in later in 2026. I think that we will bounce off this level and continue to move higher, just as we did last cycle, right? And we did it here in our second cycle as well in the bull market. It happens. We do bounce off of this level. And I think we will return to the overbought zone and move up higher. But we have lower lows in the RSI. We have higher lows in the price. It's hidden bullish divergence. Right? Worst case scenario, we've got 3 to 8, I think. Is that right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 to 8 months left of a bear market, worst case scenario. And likely, again, it'd be closer to 3 to 5 months. Likely. Worst case scenario. We're already, which in other words means we're halfway done with the bear market, which I don't know. That just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think we're in a bear market. That's why it doesn't make sense, because I don't think we're in a bear market. Or 2, we're in this scenario where we have hidden bullish divergence, where everybody thinks the market's over, that the bear market's begun, when we still have higher lows and higher highs, when we're still technically in an uptrend. And we're about to rally. We're about to see some fantastic stuff happen. Did we have hidden bullish divergence last cycle too? We did. We actually did right here. We had a low and a lower low right here, and we still had a bear market. We still went lower. But from here, you had a low and a higher low, a low and a lower low. Guess what we did? We moved up for 2 months. And then we had a bear market. If the next 2 months we see something like this where we come up to the 60 and we reject that, we get some other bearish implications, and then we come down and we break below the 50, at that point, I mean, hell, you broke below the 50 here. Let me just get rid of all this. You broke below the 50 here. Before that low was taken out, we would have officially been in a bear market. You would have known at that monthly close. In other words, what I'm trying to say is before this low gets taken out, we will know well in advance that we're in a bear market. Right? It might not be from the precise high. We might not time the top perfectly, but we will know beforehand. We had hidden bullish divergence here, and we moved up for 2 months. We had no hidden bullish divergence there. Nope, none of it there. It's kind of rare, actually. We had some hidden bullish divergence here, lower lows right here, and higher lows in the price. And guess what we saw? We saw 2 months to the upside. Again, 2 months to the upside. Again, bearish divergence is much more significant. Bullish divergence is much more significant. Hidden bullish divergence is not so significant. It's subtle, but it still works out. And the 2 times that we've seen hidden bullish divergence in this RSI, in the price, we saw movement afterwards that took the price up for like 2 months, right? So if we are in a bear market, in other words, what I'm trying to say is it might not be until February until we actually take out these lows. And before we take out those lows, we will be well prepared to call this a bear market up here. I don't think that we are in a bear market, though. If I say bear market again, take a drink or something. I hope I've given you guys some things to think. I hope I've given you guys some things to think about. Again, this video is kind of taking a different perspective than what I have, but if we were in a bear market, what could we expect? A lot of people are expecting that the bear market would end in October of 2026. That's what I hear everybody saying, is October or later in 2026. Whenever really the data that we got here would suggest that it ends in February or July, or likely somewhere in between. Most likely something in between. Probably not July and probably not February. Probably so even at that case, that would suck. We'd still move down. All coins would move down. But as far as timing goes, that's really not that far away. And we would actually have a lot of we would have a lot of time to accumulate and plan for the next cycle as things go on. I do not think this is the scenario that's going to play out. I do think that this is the scenario that's going to play out. But either way, it'll take time to figure out. So let's be open-minded and just take these thoughts with us going forward. I've got nothing else to say. Hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.